know that feeling. It's past midnight, the house is completely silent, and then something breaks it. A sound you can't quite explain, a shadow where there shouldn't be one, or a knock at your door when absolutely nobody should be knocking. Tonight, I've gathered 3 accounts from 3 different men, real people who experienced something at their door that they have never been able to forget, never been able to explain, and never been able to shake. These aren't campfire tales made up for a cheap thrill. These are the memories that still follow them into the dark when they close their eyes. Lock your door, turn off the lights, and whatever you do tonight, don't answer if someone knocks. My name is Daniel. I'm 34 years old, and I work a night shift maintenance job at a hospital. I've seen things that would turn most people's stomachs: accidents, emergencies, people quietly passing away at 3 in the morning when the world isn't watching. I thought I was desensitized to fear. I genuinely believed nothing could shake me anymore. I was wrong. This happened about 2 years ago. I had just finished a brutal 12-hour shift and got home around 2 in the morning. I made myself a cup of tea and sat down to decompress. My apartment is on the 4th floor of a building with a secure entry, a keypad at the street-level door, and a second keypad at the elevator. Nobody gets up to my floor without a code or a resident letting them in. That always made me feel safe. Which is exactly why the knock on my door at 2:17 in the morning made every single hair on my body stand at attention. It was soft at first, polite almost. 3 slow, deliberate taps. I figured it might be my neighbor Marcus, who occasionally came over when he was having a rough night. So I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. There was a man standing there, someone I had never seen before in my life. He was tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a gray sweater and dark trousers, completely ordinary looking, middle-aged, clean-shaven. If you passed him on the street, you wouldn't look twice, except for his eyes. Even through the fisheye distortion of the peephole, his eyes looked wrong, too still, like he was staring at something that wasn't there. I didn't open the door. I asked through it, "Can I help you?" And he said, and I remember every single word, "I'm so sorry to bother you. I just moved in down the hall. I ran out of milk, and my son really needs it for his medication. Could you spare just a cup? I'll pay you back tomorrow." Now that sounds completely harmless, doesn't it? A neighbor asking for milk. Except here's the thing. Nobody had moved in down the hall. The apartment at the end of the corridor had been empty for 3 months. I knew this because I had complained to management about a smell coming from that direction, and they told me it was being renovated. I told him I didn't have any milk. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Are you sure? Because it looks like someone's been cooking in there." My blood turned to ice. I hadn't told him I was cooking. My tea kettle had just boiled, but there was no gap under the door, no window, no way he could know that, no possible way. I took a step back from the door, and my foot hit one of my boots on the floor, making a dull thud, and the man on the other side tilted his head, slowly, mechanically, like an animal registering a sound. Even through the peephole, I could see the movement. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. We stood like that for what felt like an eternity. Then he put his hand flat on the door, not knocking, just pressing, palm open against it, and said, in a voice so calm it was absolutely terrifying, "It's okay. I'll come back when you're more comfortable." I heard his footsteps walk down the hall. I grabbed my phone immediately and called building security. They checked the cameras. The front door had not opened. The elevator had not moved. There was no record of anyone entering the building after 11 p.m. But the hallway camera, the one pointing directly at my door, had a gap, 47 seconds of corrupted footage, exactly the window of time he had been standing there. I moved apartments 2 weeks later. I never found out who he was or how he got in. But every night, in every place I've lived since, the first thing I do when I come home is check the peephole before I even put my keys down. And sometimes, even when I know there's nothing there, I'm afraid to look. My name is Raj. I'm 28, and I grew up in a small town in rural Pennsylvania. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where nobody locks their doors, and where the worst thing that ever happened was a fender bender on Main Street. I want you to understand that about me, because I need you to know I wasn't someone who scared easily. I didn't believe in things that go bump in the night. Until the summer I was 19, home from my first year of college. My parents had gone on a 2-week vacation to visit family overseas. I was alone in our house, a big old farmhouse on the edge of town, built in the 1940s, surrounded by fields on 3 sides and a wall of dense trees on the 4th. The nearest neighbor was half a mile away. I'd stayed alone before. It never bothered me. The first week was completely normal. I stayed up late, played games, ordered food. But on the 9th night, I was lying in bed on the 2nd floor when I heard something from the porch below my window. Humming. Soft, tuneless humming. Like someone waiting, absent-mindedly humming the way you do when you're standing in a line, passing time. I told myself it was the wind. I told myself it was an animal. The humming continued, then stopped. And then someone knocked on my front door. 3 knocks, even, deliberate, like they'd done it before and knew exactly how hard to hit. I crept to my bedroom window and looked down at the porch below. There was a girl standing there, maybe 14 or 15 years old, wearing a white summer dress that looked far too light for the cool night air. Her dark hair was loose around her shoulders. She stood completely still, staring straight ahead at the front door. I opened my window a crack and called down quietly, "Hey, are you okay?" She turned and looked up at me, expressionless. No fear, no relief, no recognition, nothing on her face at all. She said, "I just want to come inside, Raj." I had not told her my name. I slammed the window and locked it, called 911 with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, sat on my bed with every light blazing, staring at the door. The knocking started again downstairs, steady and patient, and it didn't stop for 22 minutes. I watched the clock. It stopped exactly when the police car's lights appeared at the end of the driveway. The officers searched everywhere, the road, the fields, the tree line, nothing. No girl, no car. And here's the thing that got me more than anything else. No footprints on the dusty porch. Not a single one, even though I had watched her stand right there. One of the officers, Deputy Harris, didn't dismiss me, didn't tell me I had imagined it. She asked very carefully, "Did she ask to come inside?" When I said yes, Deputy Harris nodded slowly, like that confirmed something she already suspected. She never told me what. I called my parents home early, never spent another night alone in that house, and I have never, ever gone looking for what Deputy Harris already seemed to know. Some answers are more terrifying than the questions. I go by Marcus. I'm 41, and I've spent 15 years as a long-haul truck driver. I've driven through every state in the lower 48, slept in rest stops, truck cabs, and every kind of sketchy parking lot you can picture. I've developed a gut feeling for danger over the years, that low, primal alarm bell that has kept me out of trouble more times than I can count. What happened to me was different from anything I'd faced on the road. This was at my home. About 2 years ago, I was between routes, 10 days off. I was staying at my place out in rural Missouri, 12 miles from the nearest town, nearest neighbor 3 miles out. Old property, quiet. After years of engine noise and highway lights, the silence felt like something I could actually breathe. I loved it out there. On the 4th night home, I woke up at 3 in the morning to a feeling before I heard anything, a vibration in the air, that ancient animal warning that something is wrong. And then I heard it. Footsteps on the wooden porch that runs along the front of my house. Slow, deliberate, walking the full length of the porch, then back again, pacing, like something that wasn't in a hurry, something that had time. I reached under my bed and grabbed the baseball bat I keep there. I'm not a small man, 6'1", over 200 pounds, but lying in that darkness with those footsteps just on the other side of a thin wooden wall, I felt about 6 years old. The footsteps stopped at my front door, and then the knocking started. Not desperate, not aggressive, not frantic, methodical. 3 knocks, then silence. 3 knocks, then silence, over and over, like a clock ticking, like a machine running a program. I pressed my back to the wall and slid toward the window beside the door. I slowly lifted just one corner of the curtain. There was a man on my porch, around 50 years old, flannel shirt, jeans, dressed like he'd just climbed out of bed. He was standing with his head bowed, eyes down toward the porch floor, knocking without even looking at the door, just staring at his feet and knocking. No expression, no urgency, nothing. I called out through the window, "Who are you? What do you want?" He raised his head very slowly and looked directly at the window, directly at me, even though I was standing in the dark and barely moved the curtain. He said, in a voice that was completely flat and empty, "I need you to open the door. I have the wrong house." I said, "Then leave. Go find the right house." He tilted his head, slowly, like an animal hearing a sound it doesn't recognize, and he said, "I can't leave until you open the door. That's how it works." That was all I needed. I called 911 and stayed on the line while the knocking continued. 3 and stop, 3 and stop. He never tried the handle, never circled the house, never raised his voice above that flat, empty tone, just knocked over and over and over. The dispatcher told me not to open the door under any circumstances, that it would be 20 minutes. I stood there for 19 of those 20 minutes, watching this man knock and knock and knock without stopping, without varying his rhythm, without any emotion on his face at all. In the final minute, before I saw the sheriff's lights coming up the road, he simply stopped, turned around, stepped off my porch, and walked at that same slow, deliberate pace into the field behind my property, disappearing into the tree line. The deputy searched the tree line with a flashlight. He found something I hadn't known was there, a narrow dirt path leading deep into the woods, old, well-worn, like it had been in use for a long time. It didn't appear on any map of the property. The deputy looked at me for a long moment and said I should look into selling the property. Not as a joke, with genuine concern behind his eyes, the way a doctor sounds when they say something you don't want to hear. I listed it 3 weeks later, sold it in less than a month. I still don't know what he meant. That's how it works. I've turned those 4 words in my head 1,000 times. Whatever he was, whatever rule or ritual or logic he was operating by, I am just deeply, deeply grateful that I never let him in.
3 men, 3 doors, 3 visitors that had absolutely no business being where they were. And the one thread that runs through every single one of these stories, the thing that saved all 3 of them, is that they didn't open the door. Whatever comes knocking in the dead of night, however reasonable the excuse sounds, however convincing the voice, however lost or harmless they appear, you don't owe it entry. You don't owe it an explanation. And sometimes the bravest and most important thing you can do is absolutely nothing at all. If you've experienced something like this, a knock at the door you've never been able to explain, a visitor that couldn't possibly have been there, tell us your story in the comments. We read every single one. Stay safe, stay inside, and sleep with the lights on tonight.